Ooh, welcome everybody to Flat Earth Nation. Mud flood was Armageddon. Don't let them tell you anything else unless they're willing to debate you in a fair and what's been wrong to yourself, not to others. Waiting to go, can't you see where you're wrong? So we're going to be covering a number of topics today. Some of the big ones: Past-ism, Preterism. We're going here, not here.
Originally, I had thought there was a little renegotiation of the schedule. I'm not complaining.
Am I sharing that? Hey, Randy, my man, let me and I hope that he's ready to do it. Part of the Pigeon Postmaster General, Randy says Pigeon broadcast. We broadcast. I've got Bruce Gore pulled up. Man, this guy here.
Notes of my Bible, obsessed with the Bible.
Oh boy, he kind of reminded me when I was young, except look at all this, you see. And I'd have all of this nonsense because I got out of the military. I don't know what this guy was thinking, but he is a preterist, and those guys love to call out Hal Lindsey and whatnot, Tim LaHaye in the Left Behind season. And he goes, but he has no idea what he's talking about. We're going to listen to a couple of videos, get some commentary from myself or my big brother Randy as soon as I catch up on what the heck's been going on, man. In the heck.
Hey, bro, I'm here now.
Randy. All right, I've got some other stuff pulled up too, man. You want to see some pictures of it?
Busy.
Yeah. Oh, I know. And Randy's in the house. Fractal dust bear. That means probably velocity dust bear or velocity bear can't be far behind. Vicnoid, you know her better as Victoria, is in the house, Randy. And you know what? They're anxious. They want to know what else it is tonight. Did you know there was a Republic of West Florida?
You mean currently? Or?
No. I mean back in the day. Did you know there was a Republic of East Florida? They called it Florida Oriental East. Set the compass towards the Orient. You know how come they call them the original... They're the original 13 states.
That's so yeah. At this point,
13 out of 15 said, "Put up your dukes. We're ready to fight." And two of the colonies that existed until 1783, when we finally said, "Let's write a constitution." We declared ourselves free in 76. East Florida, West Florida were colonies, and one of them said, "I want to stay with England." The other one said, "Spain looks good to me." And they both bailed, man. They didn't go with the United States, man. I got some pictures to prove it.
No, yeah, I believe. Yeah.
That's pretty cool, huh? I mean, it's like, what's next? Let's see what the pictures I have. And then I got some other stuff online.
Yeah, what's strange is what you just described. Why wouldn't Florida be included because that'd be a more desirable place to be anyhow compared to, up the coast. But that's
Here's
just
the
my
deal
take.
right here. You could see right here, East Colony was of Great Britain colony from 1763 to 1783, and a province of Spain from 1783. It didn't even go with it when they wrote the Constitution. East Florida still said, "Hey, guess what? We don't need you."
For good reason, yeah.
So that whole,
They were comfortable. They were comfortable.
Yeah, it bothers me with all the 13 original states. Now, I can hardly recognize this lakeland river of.
Yeah, who drew this map?
Is that supposed to be the Everglades? This
No,
is a
it's
map
more to the south.
It was a very new and accurate map at one time. It was drawn from what these authorities, the BEFT, I believe that's the BEFT or the left, whoever was left, they drew this up and said, "This is what we got here." I don't know.
They were legitimate, honorable, yeah.
But they wanted to go to this was the British statute mile. Here we have some sort of, it looks like an infinite loop. That's 69. Isn't that the Cancer, or I don't know. It's one of those zodiac signs, I think.
So when do they go to the kilometer? I mean, if this is European.
Well, not until 1970s.
No, but the kilometer has been around longer than that.
It's been around.
Why wouldn't you use it?
Even the money and stuff didn't change in Great Britain, but because they did, who knows what they had? They had the miles all match. Now here you see this, the Torgas.
Okay. When you're talking about money in Britain, so sterling, it wasn't that the pound. Does that imply anything about gold, or is that a different precious metal? I'm just throwing that out there. I'm just throwing a fastball.
We're going to get to it. I want to get to it. You see this, the Torgas. This doesn't look like much, does it? You keep remembering what you want me to look up, because I will look at something myself. Because we know that the states aren't. Let's check this out, because I want to get this toward. I'm going to put in dry Tortugas. Not dry torpedoes or dry tubas. Deal here in the dry Tortugas, because that's where that 16 million brick Starford is at. That's in the dry Tortuga National Park. I'm having a hard time saying Tortuga tonight.
Yeah, convenient but hard to explain.
There it is. Only, you know what? They know how many bricks it took to build it out here in the middle of nowhere. 16 million.
Well, yeah, that's obvious because you can see them all.
This sounds like a lot.
Or enough of them where, do the math.
I was ecstatic in the attic. Told me he could do it by hand with just a couple of people in a couple of years.
Yeah, a couple good tenders.
It looks like man.
Yeah, and some layers, and all you have to do is bolt them on in and get her done. However that works.
Who are we voting for that gets it all? The Queen Elizabeth, because she did good at that, right?
You got booed, wasn't it?
Did she really?
Well, they all did. Whoever showed up got booed.
Well, why not? She's so much of a fake?
Hack job?
I'm sure that, she's been the only queen of our lives, Randy. Our whole life, she's been the queen.
Yeah, I'm sure she'll outlive me.
I wouldn't think so. Aunt Randy, she's 145 years old, man.
Yeah,
You're only
no. I'm not
88,
like
80,
I say. I'm not
89, 90
predicting
years.
myself to outlive her as far as years. I don't know what vintage of.
Oh yeah. We don't. As far as we know, Ray never had the hankering for that adrenochrome stuff at all. He's the most pro-life guy I know. He, just like me, I think we're tied. Here's your coat of arms. Here's the people that love the pound sterling, Randy. I found it.
And who does it? Or who did it? Yeah.
Where's Waldo?
Solid as Sears, yeah.
Here's the House of Lords. It looks like the blue is winning. There's even a couple blue over here. Oh, wait. Yeah. Well, gray is winning. I don't know.
Where's it? Yeah, there's really a dark one.
So there's the 1 penny. They had a penny in 1967. They hadn't changed over, is what I was trying to get to, man. They didn't go over to that whole, like pound thing. And there was a time when the people from Great Britain, all of them, had they could make change in 3 different monies. Give me a half of a, what did they say, that eighth of an eighth, and then 2 bits, and then give me a.
Oh yeah, it's a.
They were doing all of that. The United States got that. They had silver. They were doing it in their head, and then they said, no, you need to do it metric style. There's a shilling. There's a shilling. That's gold, though. This is old, predestined system. The top hat costs 1/2 of a guinea, but they say that's 10/6. So a half a guinea equals 10 shilling 6 pence.
Which is substantial.
Look at that hat. Yeah, man. Yeah, it's substantial.
It's a 5-gallon bucket.
Dude, you don't give those hats away. That hat right there is probably what, like one of those big cowboy hats today. You'd be like, give me $100, man. There's a pound, 20 shillings.
Couple months' wage.
And they had silver pennies. We had copper pennies here.
Yeah, we were ahead of them, yeah.
That's fake because they're, I don't know, taking off a penny. Probably worth more than a penny. Who knows?
Even though we were after them, we were ahead of them. Yeah.
We were way before our time. Look at that ear. That's not fake.
No.
That's the same.
Saddle up, partner.
I don't know. Here. Who knows? Where's the... There's some version of, looks like pi, but I can't be sure. This is an I, so that's a 1, so it's probably fake, but so many calendars, so many ways to.
But the main thing is it's value for purchasing power. What does it represent?
What we have here, Randy, is medieval.
Dark Ages? I get confused.
Great slump. That's interesting. Forget the gold. there was the suspension of the gold standard over there, Andy. They confiscated the gold.
Yeah, when there isn't
Far
enough
from
to go
Bretton Woods
around, you need to do that.
decimalization.
Yeah. Yeah, good idea.
My mistake. Let's get clarified on this whole decimal. In 18 finally forced it onto them in 1971 when we were told we
abandoned
our lives, and then but they let the old coin stay in effect until 1993, so it hasn't been that old. Did we proved a good point tonight, man. We could just quit right now, but no way. We're still back to East Florida. We got, it was a province of Spanish for until 1821. Why didn't anybody tell us?
Yeah, you would have thought someone would have recognized it.
They go like that. 13 original colonies. If it was no big deal, everybody would have went, yeah, it's like the Colonel's original recipe. My mom's got an original recipe. Everybody's got it. Everybody's got 13 colonies if you pull them out.
Yeah, there isn't anyone that doesn't love it.
Right. We've been fooled once, and now they're trying to fool us again. But they got some turmoil. British operatives. The United States would never do this, but British operatives.
Yeah, they wouldn't intentionally do it.
So then some patriots unhighlighted because they show Donald Trump.
Hey, Alan, is your audio?
What's that?
Is your audio kind of iffy or in and out? Or I don't know how
I hope not. You sound good. Is my audio breaking up or is it not loud?
It's intermittent. It's definitely breaking up on my end. I don't know if anyone else is experiencing.
Probably are if you are. The microphone.
Like you're in a freeze frame also.
There, we're back. Can you hear? It's like that thing. I'm typing a thing. Hang on. Now, we'll see how long it takes. So, every now and then, see, I can tell we have a good connection because look how fast it's changing when I hit these things. Shillings, half pennies, guineas, pounds, sterling, standard. They seem to have had a system of 3 different economies that were interchangeable with basically different coins. Something was working over there. Yeah, we're happy now. Now we're happy in that. This afternoon, had to go.
But it was about as far as the quality of the coin was comparable as just the weights were different, maybe.
Between what? Between what coins?
Well, the coins in comparison. You said the 3 different the quality of the metal in the coin must have been comparable. It would be just the weights of the different coins that would give you a quarter or an eighth or whatever, you know.
It doesn't
You
say
know.
here, Randy, but that's a very good point. They probably, now we saw that they were still using silver pennies up till 1967. Let's just get, you know,
Yeah, the smelting and all that was.
yeah. So in 1940, an agreement with the United States pegged sterling to the US dollar at a rate of £1. That equals $4.03. It stayed at that, around in that, for a long time. It had been $4, and so they lost
until it went fiat, probably.
Well, we went fiat. And when we went fiat, because they were on the petrodollar, they went fiat with us. Everybody,
Right.
we told them the United States doesn't have any gold or silver backing our dollar. So they probably did in 1970, just like everybody else. You know, if they're still using silver,
you would have to.
It'd be insanity. It'd be insanity that if we said right now that they're using silver pennies over there. That's crazy. It's crazy. I don't believe it, you know.
Well, there wasn't much silver in them, but okay.
Maybe, you know, maybe if it's like that. But at the time, when you think about it, in 1964, it was 90-10, 90% silver or something like that. You know, it was a lot of freaking silver, 92 or something like that, 93.7. It was up there, man. And then boom.
Either a small penny or extremely flat. I don't know how you.
Yeah, they had to debase it. Under King Henry VIII was the original debasement. Now, I forget what year King Henry VIII lived, but it says here sterling was devalued by 14% in 1967. They had tourists were banned from taking, you know, because tourists were going over there, they were taking all the silver out. And so eventually they could only take $50 out and in cash and
coinage.
Yeah. So they knew something was going on. But I want to try to find the it's called the Great Debasement.
Where everything is suddenly worth nothing?
No, the little sneak. This guy, you know the guy I'm talking about. This guy, oh man, I read it 8 I'm drunk again. Blah,
yeah.
Blah, hey,
guess
what?
Nuts.
I was selling gold coins that was supposed to be 24 karat, and it was 22 karat. During the debasement, gold standard dropped from the previous standard of 23 karat to as low as 20 karat because this guy, he was, you know, well, here's the story. The Great Debasement lasted until he got caught. 1544. In their world, in my world, that is about 100 years before John the Baptist. And things were already going bad because it was a Starfort world. These were the type of things we lived in. I'm thinking crazy now, but go with it. Let's just roll. He had the currency debasement policy introduced in 1544 under his direct order. This is proven. This guy, look at me, how I can stand like that. What is that? That's the Lex Luthor pose, right? Which saw the amount of precious metal in gold and silver coins reduced and in some cases replaced entirely with cheaper base metals such as copper. They were so poor They are so bad, and they always have been, which is why right now they're under the thumb. We're all under the thumb of China. We got played like fools. During the debasement, gold dropped from the previous standard of 23. I don't know why it wasn't 24. Do you have any idea on that, brother?
Well,
but they were
24 carats. Who's going to carry that many carats? You know,
yeah.
you need either smaller carats or less larger ones. I don't know.
So here's the answer. Sterling silver is 92.5 to only 25%. That's like what was they did keep $50. So I know that everyone knows, look for dimes and quarters and $50 and silver dollars before 1964. But until 1968, the Kennedy $50 kept using 30% silver. So there is a little hangover in your $50. There was the Black Death, man. Oh no. That was, it was they were suffering from the effects of the Black Death. It caused an economic expansion, and Joe Biden floated a bond, didn't get it, so he debased the metal. I can see it all now like it didn't happen yesterday.
Yeah, just like dreaming in digital.
I'm dreaming of the previously unsuccessful Testoon. It sounds like a cartoon. An English shilling was a silver coin of the Kingdom of England when first introduced, known as a Testoon. I wonder if they put them in the spittoon. It remained in circulation until it became the British shilling as a result of the union of King England and Scotland all the way in 1708. So that's way past that Magna Carta stuff,
Mm-hmm.
I got some more stuff.
Yeah.
That no, we're
And
good
then
on
you end
that.
up in the basement.
Hey, yeah, okay, I get it. Now here, look at this one, brother. This doesn't look like where New Orleans. Well, New Orleans is right on.
Well, Louisiana is getting squeezed there north, or because the Panhandle, I don't think travels that far west any longer.
I don't think
protrude
Florida
that far north.
Right.
Neither.
Right. This is Mississippi now.
Yeah, Mississippi. Yeah, and Alabama must be not too far away.
Right there above Florida. But there's this one thing I wanted to show you. That it was all like Texas, it was all land grants. That's one of the pictures.
From now, what year was that map?
1835. This is 1835 map of Texas.
All right.
Here's over here. This is where a friend of Tommy's goes fishing all the time. He catches bass here and lets them go like a dummy, right? But the takeaway here is, right after the Alamo, when they, trumped up that propaganda. This is Stephen F. Austin got this much land as a grant for good job of running them Mexicans out, guys. Way to go. And guess what? Well,
here's your reward. Yeah.
This whole land here in the green is Beale's grant. Those are big names in here. Well, here's DeWitt's grant. All this land was granted to them by who? Somebody. They owned it after the Spanish-American War. McMillan and McGlones. Never heard of them, but here was their grant. Well, here's the Powers grant. De Leon. You wonder where Ponce de Leon went. He got a grant and moved down by New Orleans.
Well, hopefully they don't piss it away once they get it.
It's all grants. This is Velam's grant, Burnett's grant. And you know what those guys did in the Yazoo swindle? They said, oh, no, you don't, boys. We already sold this land to me. And, we don't care about the chocolate.
For dimes on the dollar, or pennies on the dollar.
And well, these guys are going, but it's free. We got it free, a grant, because we kicked the Mexicans out, So it's just one of those things.
Well, it serves now.
Nobody's giving it back. And nobody today ever owned any slaves. We know.
Right.
So here's a different look at New Orleans. Still right on the river, but, no delta at all. Something coming out here.
More time.
There's the Tortugas. We looked at that. Here's one of these things. Live and operate. I was watching a video where a guy just that's why I remembered it. And I looked it up because he's going like, but once the 13 British colonies in North America became independent, the United States, and, the typical song and dance. We kicked ass and now look at us. Yeah. Okay. So here's another,
keep writing about it.
Another look at Texas here, but this map's no good. It'd be about probably right in here, I would have thought. Now when I see these things, I've been trying to fascinate on these for years, and now it's back. This is cut. These two things come down here, and when they're counted, you can see like there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 little like lakes or something in it, and that's cut apart. I have a few of these pulled up, so we'll kind of look at. So again, here we see 4, but on the other one it was 5, and I see one that's kind of gone here. But here we see the same thing, where I think that these maps are of the eye, and they really are showing veins, and that the ley lines and the star tetrahedrons are all in the bodies. Because the more I look at it, that is a piece of skin going over it with a nerve, so that a nerve can go over it. There's something going on with these Mappa Mundis. They always have the Lord at the top. It always comes up like it's, to me, it's an eyeball, which is why when it comes down here on these Mappa Mundis, it's always off center, because there's a blind spot that they show here. And because of the optic nerve forces it, there's this blind spot, it comes off center. So try to use your imagination. As I scroll down, you'll see that this pin is not in the center of it, like your optic nerve is not. Just one more thing of the
like it's supposed to be.
Right. Just one more thing. And we see the people on the right hand, over here. Is this the good side? Is this the bad side? Well, there's going to be sheep and goat, right hand, left hand. Do we see them?
It's hard to say if it's a mirrored image.
It's not. It's not mirrored. It's just looks the same. This is the different picture of it, a different year. It's the same Harford Mappa Mundi.
Well, I'm just saying, it's the right eye mirrored of the left eye.
It looks
That's
better.
all I'm.
Okay, so that's it for those pictures. Now I was going to look at some of these.
The helmet.
Yep, that's your brain with. That's your corpus callosum, the way you fire, the way you think. That's how come they had that running down the middle of their helmets, and use it on the Phrygian cap. Use it. Everybody knows, I think it looks like the Chicago Bears C. Time to get inside that brain. That's where those firing points are. That's where all of your, that's why up above is a big blood supply, and it's called the Circle of Willis, because it needs this kind of blood, and these are crystals, liquid firing points that turn to crystals, stored energies to run your wristwatches, because you're a battery. Yin and yang, swastikas, swastika only means something as long as the word is Jesus Christ. Amen, brother?
Amen, yeah.
They can talk vibration.
You know what?
Yep, vibration all you want, as long as it resonates with Jesus Christ.
Picking up good vibrations.
Taking these apart on rocks. There are parts in these that you will learn and will know how to spot.
It looks complicated because it is.
But it's doable. It's doable when you know these things.
It's old.
But we're moving on, man. We're moving on. I got to show you this here. What brought up these pictures before we get to the actual Bible study is, look at this rock I found in the yard. I mean, that's a corner. These are corners. These are push marks where when it makes, 5-side things like that, and there's little shaded areas that they were obviously touching something else in the body, wet and smooth and working, and then just got hit and frozen. And the reason that, why I think this was in the brain, Randy, is as people have had a chance to look it over right now, besides and this is kind of a giveaway too, so many of these corners and things, it would be a big Nephilim. There's no, this is a good view. There's no attachments, investment points for any vein or artery, because it's just liquid firing up there in that mess. That's what I'm talking about.
Yeah, size matters, probably.
All of these would be hidden biology, because I think that everybody knew that it's all about the body, your heart, your eye, your pinions. I believe that the reason that they went to the high places was because they saw those things in it. I'm not sure, but I see it. It's there. I'm looking for the why also. That's all I can say on that. Let's keep going. West Florida, it was the same suspicious stuff. Now, here is this guy. That's the background. Here's Mr. Make sure he shows off. I'm a badass, and he probably is. So don't try to mess with him, I'm sure. Here he goes, Randy.
And what's that detail in the corner?
That's false teaching.
These things?
Yeah.
Well, these are 3 different. Like, this is your basic jump wing. That's what I got for being in the 82nd Airborne. This one is a jump master, where he has over 100 jumps. And then this one is something like air assault repelling school, or he can teach. He can teach. He's got anyway.
Yeah.
It's quite
a deliberate detail just off the edge of his melon there on this video. So
right, it's right there, equal with his mind. In his mind right now, he is portraying himself like I would. I'm the ultimate patriot. Nobody could have asked more of me. I did my 20 years. I fought the fight. He's showing his wife. She's pregnant at the time, possibly, and they're happy as can be. They're young. They're made it. He's going to teach theology, and this is a good man. This is exactly what I believed until the Lord showed that mud flood was Armageddon.
yeah, so it's not just balls of steel, but there's sterling silver.
Yeah, nobody's doubting this man's integrity, but I think that if he sticks with loving America, and let's just listen to him for a few minutes.
Okay. View was false, and we got in the modern era here, the last 30 years or whatever. You had or even longer. You had Hal Lindsey with the late great Planet Earth, right? World's bestseller, and you got Tim LaHaye with the Left Behind series. So today's church totally takes this as being the only view, basically, of Revelation. Which now, if you look at this view, I'm just going to point out a couple really quick things. But this book, it opens up in Revelation chapter 1. It says the revelation of Jesus Christ. Right now, today's view is the revelation of the Antichrist. The focus is not on Jesus Christ. The focus is on the Antichrist. Right. And look what this says: the revelation of Jesus Christ, which God gave him.
That wasn't bad. We got there in 41 minutes to the topic tonight. Pretty good.
To show to his bondservants,
yeah, bring it on.
Things which must soon
let it rain.
Right. Which must soon take place. You're thinking to yourself, wait a minute. So, and he wrote to 7 churches, right? So he wrote to 7 literal churches.
7 angels.
A lot of terrifying
7 angels.
Information.
Amen.
He writes to 7 churches. So today's churches
are trying to 7 angels.
A joke, like John was like, sight.
Right. It's a good argument, right?
Well, I'm just saying what it says. To the angel. They're all to the angel. Huh?
I'm gonna look them up so that they'll know why you're, because it is important. It's a very important.
Well, it's a detail,
right?
And the devil seems
John
to be in the details. But
grace to you and peace from him who is and was and is to come, and from the 7 spirits who are before his throne, and from Jesus Christ, the faithful witness, the firstborn of the dead, and the ruler of the kings of the earth. Wow.
See, and that's my argument. Why stop at 3? Why isn't there 7? Trinity is 3.
Right.
That's where I take, my argument. Why stop at 3? Why don't you go to 7 right away? 1 for every day of the week, or however you want to divvy it up. But,
well, the thing is
7 spirits.
They're happy with us doing the more than one God thing, is if it involves Isis and Mary as Isis, and this whole, that it's the Roman Catholic thing with the transubstantiation. That's why they're doing the medical cannibalism with, starting.
I'm not sorry, but I don't have any interest in that. But I do throw that out.
Right. Here's the ones that he likes to talk about. It's
well, you can go right down the line,
right. That
chronologically. Each one's going to say to the angel. Every letter,
right,
is going to say to the angel.
Let's wait. We'll get to that. Let's start at 3 here and show his arguments. He did say that whoever reads this, and for those hearing it, And if you keep it, there's 3 ways to be blessed by it. The first way is to believe that it's true, and that when he says it's near, this is used 30 out of 30 times. Have you ever seen a stronger root word than there's only one word for it, Randy?
Yeah, it might be in Thessalonians.
You know when summer is near. You know,
It's
when
Yeah.
somebody's walking up to the door. His time, he was saying, was like that. You know that summer is near. They had one generation, John the Baptist, and everybody kept coming and
The
saying,
axe is at the root.
that's right.
What's that telling you?
And when we stop and tell people that it's to the angel and things like that, it's because it's important, and it's not because, we're trying to nitpick him. It's that this man, busy as he must have been, started trusting the people that,
It's the Spirit of God. It's it's God's Spirit. To those that are in tune to the frequency and the everything about it. That's
But this is a good argument that Jesus wasn't going, "Ooh, it's a joke," like John was kind of going, "Psych you out." But imagine trying to bring up to him if he probably believes in the globe. The odds are.
why wouldn't he? I mean, he should be a parrot just like anyone else in the zoo.
He knows
It's a clown show.
He knows it's his heart.
It's entertaining. Yuck, yuck, yuck.
Well, I honestly know that the Lord could be moving on him and things like that right now. We'll keep praying, but he honestly has to look into other things before you start tearing down like, well, yeah. Well, he's going to explain it. He's going to go, this is all spiritual. I'm going to play a couple more, then jump to the end.
Yeah, he'll present his.
That's for the church, 2,000 years future in the future, right? It's not for you. I didn't mean to scare you. Didn't mean to scare you by those 7 horrific letters. And then, anyway, so that's just total nonsense right there. And but then some people say, well, when you read in that first part of Revelation, it's talking about a quarter of the earth being destroyed, and a third of the earth being destroyed. That hasn't happened yet. That's true. The way they translated that, the word earth is Greek word G-E, gay, pronounced gay, G-E. But that word can mean the land. Yeah, and it does seem like what I used to believe in is getting a little more gay all the time.
Eyes wide closed, yeah.
Right, that's he was showing himself as a humble servant as well, but he was also, teaching us that we're in the gospel era. Get those feet moving. Go tell the gospel, right? So the Bible is very clear that the Antichrist comes from the one world government of Rome, and that already happened. That's the ladies of iron, right? We're in, and people might say, well, if we're in a millennial reign of Christ, Satan's not locked up right now. Okay, you're missing the whole point. This is spiritual, right? Before you heard the gospel message, you were locked up in the chains of sin and death with the devil.
Amen.
You were locked up. See, this new version of Revelation.
The thing is, though, is to expose a lie and replace it with something not true can be counterproductive, can it not, brother?
Yeah, well, I don't see any advantage to what you just described.
Right. Now,
a lie for a lie. And a half truth for a half truth.
I honestly, to this day, like when I had to, when I was in a board meeting and then I'm like being ambushed, like, oh my gosh, I am getting fired. I had to just, it's like, and I had to like quit. It was like I was kind of surprised, but not really. And I had to sit there and go, no, I'm not going to stop smoking marijuana. No, I don't think you guys are right about anything. And things like and just go, yeah, I'm leaving. I don't want to be.
Praise the Lord. Yeah.
Right. I'm. I was pretty upset.
What you want?
That's the way I feel about flat Earth. I'm sorry, anybody that, I loved and respected and, won't hurt, nothing but love. I'm not still going to be like, yeah, we're right on board. We believe everything, right? No, there has to be a, you know what? No, it's a big deal that it's not a globe, because it's those same Roman church that taught him that.
Well, they're the ones that embraced it, certainly, and propagated it, and not that makes it right. It's just follow the money or follow whatever
what he's
follow.
What he actually said and is missing is the fact that Armageddon ends when the beast and the false prophet are captured in Revelation.
The rapture, the first resurrection. That's
captured the false prophet, captured the beast, captured Satan, right at the beginning of 20, and put him in a pit for 1,000 years. So don't tell me,
and that's significant.
The beast and the prophet aren't still in the lake of fire. Satan's loosed. Yeah, they're still in the lake of fire, and there's still a battle yet to come after the 1,000 years. I didn't see it either, which is why
that's why I always say I like to compare that to the Noah's flood. Those are 2 times of judgment where it's a world changing event. World changing. Right.
Those are 2 out of 4 that I believe changed, because I believe that the earth, when it says in chapter 1, whenever that was an in beginning of the earth made it void, God said at one time, Moses, I want to start over with you. So he will start over. There was the voided earth. There was Armageddon. There was the reaping after the 1,000 years.
That's what I always say, just because when Noah got out of the ark and there was the rainbow and God said he would never destroy the earth with a flood again, that's where I say that doesn't mean he didn't do it before. He won't do it again. Because
what won't he do again? Fill it up. He won't kill every living creature. He didn't say he won't bring more floods. He brought a lot more floods. A lot more floods.
Well, not worldwide event.
Right.
Like
Armageddon was a worldwide event involving
exactly
mud, and everything else. But not every human life was taken, because there were people in catacombs.
Yeah.
They had cattle in there. There were things that made it.
For a while, yeah.
So, he never said he wasn't going to make it, no more even big storms. And something had to happen when it said at the reaping at the end, when they said, shall we pick him now? He said, no, wait for the end. And in Revelation, I think it's 6 or 13, one of them goes like, the angels are going, should I go out? And I saw the other angel, he said, reap it. And he did,
That was geoengineering? Yeah. Maybe that. But yeah, it doesn't go on indefinitely. We know that. And the end was written from the beginning. So, take what you want, be comfortable with what you take.
Right now, it's like no more war. Here's we'll just read the words here. Spreading a lie for what one thinks is for the greater good is definitely the folly of a fool. Any war anywhere in history, and especially now, are based on lies. We are looking at somewhat
covering your ass with salve. Yeah,
I think we're in the middle.
It'll be uncomfortable.
What are the odds, Randy, that the winners of the war really did rewrite the history and we believed it? What are the odds? You're a poker man now. Play the poker man. What are the odds? What are the odds?
It's a fact. History is a lies agreed upon.
Randy is saying that in a poker world, that's when somebody, I've got the nuts. I've got the best.
Call my bluff.
100%.
Yeah.
You can't lose. Let's bet ourselves.
Winner take all. Winner take all.
I am betting my salvation.
That they're teaching us it contradicts the word of God, because the gospel is powerful. The gospel message is powerful, but today's church, a lot of people don't even know what the full gospel even is. That Jesus conquered. It can be found actually in Leviticus 23. Right, I have a book on Amazon if you could pick it up. But the 7 feasts from Leviticus 23, those bottom feasts, he conquered sin. Those top feasts, he conquered death.
Oh, I think he's hawking a book. This must be Keith Elrod himself.
Okay.
Jesus conquered sin and death. Then on Pentecost.
But he doesn't recognize the biblical timeline. Huh?
That's the full gospel. Jesus conquered sin
not
and
yet.
death and sends us the Holy Spirit. We're in the gospel era right now. Jesus Christ.
I'll bet he can do more push-ups than us. But anyway,
so
I skipped it. But he believes that we are in Revelation 20, but he doesn't know why or how.
How we got here. Yeah. How? Yeah.
And so here is a link to an awesome YouTube video by the Bruce Gore. I've got it pulled up for you, brother.
Okay. Let it roll.
Don't give me that he looks like an old hippie thing, okay? Oh, wait.
He looks like an old hippie thing.
Explaining.
But he's not fat with tattoos?
The 12 weeks to
space.
10.
Whose space is this?
This was 6 years ago. And if you let's
because we know outer space doesn't exist, so this is these.
Yep, this is the teacher.
I have limited moments for nonsense.
You're gonna get plenty of that.
Okay.
Oh, I can tell we're lagging. I can tell we're lagging, Randy. I don't know if they can hear us or not, but when it doesn't load like that, it's because I'm lagging, or they might be able to hear us, but we don't have.
We need more patience.
Yeah, and I want to pray for Bruce. Maybe he shaved his ponytail and stuff, but I got no problem with ponytails. I might be getting a ponytail pretty soon, man.
What's wrong with the ponytail?
What's wrong with them? Where's his ponytail?
A Tony pail.
Ponytail. Did he shave it off? Bruce, I know you had a ponytail, man. That's 5 months ago.
Yeah.
We'll see if he's still.
We'll get to the context. Yeah.
Is he? Yep, he's
He's
a Presbyterian, and I would have considered him a hero.
I knew a few.
I do think he's a hero. We used to just barely put up with you conservative Lutherans. You know that, right?
No, my old man was raised a Presbyterian.
Oh, so you did fall far from the truth.
Include slaves.
My bad. I have no proof that he ever had a ponytail. Maybe that's just in my mind. Okay. Or I'm confusing him with somebody else. But anyway, here's his take on the preterist approach to revelation. He thinks throughout the history of the church, there have always been those who maintained that the colorful and powerful images of Revelation refer largely to events that took place in the first century. That's always been people that taught that, but never what we teach, what the Lord has showed me. And
how current is this video?
6-7 years ago.
Okay, all right, yeah.
So the oldest comments I see are 6 years ago, but that could be pushing 7 years,
Yeah, absolutely.
But he this will be a pretty solid thing. It says, well, this view, the preterist, not preterism, we call it pretamillennialism, past millennialism, not preterism, just past-ism of some things. While this view has not been the majority outlook, it will be. It persists because there's so many verses where Jesus said, I'm coming back in this generation. I'm 100. I'm coming back in this generation. The time is short. And all these other three things. Ooh, my arthritis.
Then he wasn't lying.
Who? No,
You're
he
confused?
was not lying. A lot of people.
Then he wasn't confused.
This is
It was
Bruce
bound to
doesn't
happen.
I think this is the one where Bruce gets won over and he's breaking it to his church that he kind of believes in. At least he took the baby step of preterism.
The 3 weeks I was going to spend doing what I'm doing this morning has been
that too loud?
truncated severely.
No.
I am working my best not to sound like I'm in a panic this morning trying to get through it. I'm going to try to be leisurely, but you will see the sweat coming down my face as we proceed. So I apologize in advance if I seem a little bit frantic as we're going along. It does seem to me if we're going to think about how to view any book of the Bible, Revelation or any other, we need to at least ask.
Oh, wait, man, I'm the old hippie. Never mind, Randy.
The question of how is the task of hermeneutics, that is biblical interpretation, to be accomplished. This is not uniquely to apply to Revelation.
That probably explains why he was doing those 5 mushrooms this afternoon.
To all the Bible, and my friends, it applies to any legitimate document representing human literary expression. These are simply common sense rules of interpretation, the first of which is that we need to bear in mind that while a text may have many applications, it has only one fundamental interpretation, one fundamental meaning. And the task of the interpreter is to get in touch with the original and intended sense of the text. We must start there, else we find ourselves in a sea of confusion. And so in Revelation, we want to find that one sense that is the original idea. And we begin with the principle of the original intent. The question we're asking is, what did the original author mean to communicate original recipient?
What, Randy?
Well, that sea of illusion, I say, throw me a life vest. Yeah, more evidence. Or an anchor. Throw me an anchor even. Yeah. Solid rock.
And how did they most hear it? This is called the historical grammatical method. It's an attempt to try to ask,
you're not sharing.
What was the mind of the original correspondence here? The writer, the author, the origin of the document, and the recipient.
You're not sharing, Alan. Yeah, there you go. Yeah.
But unless we do it, we've really cut ourselves free from any objective standard by which to try to judge the meaning of a text. Well, one of the things we have to do in that connection is ask the contextual question. What's the context of the document? This begins with its historical context. We've said Revelation is very likely a document produced early in the persecution launched by Nero, probably about the year 65, 66, written to perfectly definite churches existing in Asia Minor. You can go visit them to this day. Those cities are still there, or the ruins thereof. These were historical recipients of the document living in a particular circumstance of history, and this book was written originally for them. We also ask, what's the biblical context of the writing? Revelation, surprisingly enough, is part of the Bible. And yet, strangely, people will take Revelation, rip it away from the Bible, and use it in the most extraordinarily different ways from the way they would view the company with the rest of the canon. Well, if we apply rules to
I get that. That's what people do. It's like, well, don't believe that. How could we miss the size of the buildings described in the Bible? And just be, it had to be like cavemen because they were evolving from cavemen. It's what the Bible seemed like, even the, go ahead.
I think, or, I believe how we are taught attention to details aren't that important, because you're looking
Right.
at you're supposed to be looking at something else.
They provide the overall story,
Yeah.
and they do make it gut wrenching. And
Yeah.
I mean, I love the story of
Who wants to answer
Joseph
questions?
and Mary starving like hobos, along going over the mountains. They didn't even have roads. They were just, well, it's that
Well,
way.
I think they had roads.
Okay, yeah, but
and
in
enough
the
of them
stories,
used them.
Joseph and Mary were roughing it. I mean, the barn they stayed in,
Well,
I wouldn't let my call a doghouse in some of
For
those.
the time, that's was
I
as
don't
good
believe
as
the
it gets.
time was anything like that. I believe she stayed in a Star Fort Inn stable where they it probably, I don't think it was I don't think she was roughing it. I think it was Star Fort times back then. And
I think a barn was a barn and an inn was an inn, and a personal home was whether it was Rahab and getting her family into Jericho. It was all it all worked. It all worked then at that time until it didn't.
Bethlehem would have been, wherever.
And the curse on Jericho. We know what that was. The first son would die, and the last youngest son would die, and it happened. If you're going to rebuild this, the curse, blessings and curse, as far as incentives and consequences, I think all that is still happening current, whether you take it for what it is or not.
Right. Was that him? Right. The canon. Let's see.
And he's doing a good job explaining not just the Bible, but documents and
he's right on when it was written,
and meaning,
right,
and reasoning, and logic, and interpretation to another language. I mean, he's gone over all of that so far.
Right. Let's see what he says, and I'm going to look up something and kind of play along with it.
The rest of the Bible, we should apply those same rules in Revelation. There's no warrant to sort of take leave of our senses and view the book in very, very different ways than we would have necessarily seen the rest of the Bible. Finally, if we're looking at a particular text,
and here's a good argument right here.
Is there any guidance in the immediate
context? If you want to pause for just a moment, because this is all supposed to be where I've been taught that it was not a dream, but it's supposed to be some sort of expanded, more or less a dream.
Well,
and it doesn't mean
it's the letters from Jesus. Jesus tells them, here, write this. Chapter 4 says after that he was caught up and he starts getting different visions at different times, and other things. But it does start out as strictly, Jesus, here's the rundown. Here's these letters. Tell them this.
And I think it's very specific also where he says, do not write that down. What you just seen.
No, that is Revelation 13 or 14, but that does remind me of a couple of times of Daniel. I know at least twice in Daniel 12, it says it's seal it up. Seal it up.
Right. Yeah. And we also know if it wasn't that the Lord didn't cut the time short, there wouldn't be any survivors.
For those
Because he
back
said
then,
that.
right? For us, we
Yeah.
have our eyes wide open. We know the deal.
Yeah. Either wide open or wide closed.
Right.
We're not all the same.
Either they're
Right.
either they're sheep or they're goats, and that means one or two things. If you're a goat, your eyes
You're on one
haven't
side
been
or the
opened.
other.
If you're a sheep, your eyes have been opened by God, and we don't. It's not the fun parts of the Bible, but we know, and there are different things. The easy things, the God is love things are always easy, but the hard things are right there.
Well, life.
How he says, this is why I
challenge.
told you, no one can come to me unless it is granted him by the Father. And that's how we get our eyes open, so that we'll never boast. And we know that hurts. It hurts. It hurts to hear it. And it says, after this, many of his disciples turned back and never walked with him again to hear his side of the story. And that's the sad part.
See, and that's where your life and my life totally differ. I was never one to pursue that much until I got married. And that changed my circumstance.
Right.
And then the years following that, because my mother was Catholic, and like I said, my father was Presbyterian raised, and I was raised Catholic.
Now, Randy,
I was pretty much heathen.
Randy, are you all done with work or not?
Well, I return on Monday.
But one more week, 3 more days, 4 more days?
No, a 40-hour week of 8s beginning on Monday. Yeah.
So you're down. It is. Edna wanted to know. So you got 1 more week. All
and
right.
then I terminate my employment. I don't plan on retiring.
They're terminating your employment. You won't get a medical. You won't get a medical procedure, so they're firing you.
No, because I'm on Medicare, and to get full retirement, and my age bracket is 666, 66 years 6 months.
Wow,
that's my age bracket. I don't achieve that for 1 more year as of last month.
Yeah.
But I'm going to terminate my employment. I am already on Medicare, and I pay for that. Currently $170.10 per month for anyone that's on it. However you want to do it. If you want the traditional or go with a local,
Is that expensive? You don't mind me asking?
$170.10 is US dollar. $170.10 per month for anyone who is on it. That's what it is.
Well, you may as well take it. You know what? We are eating up bandwidth, but that's all right. That's all right.
But I have 1 more 40-hour week remaining with the terms that I agreed with,
So, are you going to get like a watch, a party? What's planned?
No, I don't. I just completed 19 years consecutively as of April Fool's Day past.
Wow.
I don't expect anything. 1 more year, then I would get more vacation and all that. After 20, it would go up.
Did you ever see the famous clip of the girl that quit her job in Alaska? It's an internet favorite.
From when?
A couple years ago.
For any reason?
I don't know. It's famous. She quit because of marijuana.
Oh.
Top story out of an Alaska news station Sunday night out of Anchorage came out of that very news station. While reporting on the Alaska Cannabis Club, reporter Charlotte Green confessed to viewers that she herself was the founder of the organization. Green then said to viewers that she will be dedicating all of her energy to fight for the freedom and democracy and other patriotic things that I don't remember exactly what was in her quote, but the clip will show you exactly what she said.
Everything you heard is why I, the actual owner of the Alaska Cannabis Club, will be dedicating all of my energy toward fighting for freedom and fairness, which begins with legalizing marijuana here in Alaska.
It was then, at that point, Green quit on the air, and quite memorably.
And as for this job, well, not that I have a choice, but I quit.
Now, while I can't say that I agree with Green's tact and her method for resignation, what I do admire is her resolve and the desire she has to dedicate her life in pursuit of her passion. And that here really is the true story. So the question is, what is it that you are passionate about and are you doing it?
Wow.
Let us know by sharing in the comments section.
I'm not
She appeared sincere, whether it was in an act.
Just laid down the gauntlet. You need to get something. The White Widow. She wants to sell the marijuana.
Go figure. How did her career pan out?
No, she's selling the White Widow.
Yeah. That's old. That's got to be 40 years old.
As I'm walking towards the door. Hey, we've got to get this. Let's be serious. I mean, Armageddon's over. We want to head back to the hills. Where's the nearest catacomb? Gas is up to $5 in some places. You know, it's like $4.30 around here.
Yeah, it's pennies away now. You're splitting hairs.
Oh, yeah, well, we live right by Houston. I mean, this is where there's a lot of gas around here. I mean, we might.
But it'll be expensive. As a commodity.
It's already expensive. It's over $4.25.
Put your money in fuel. That's obviously.
Put your money in Bruce Gore. 37,000 people.
Text. One of the things you discover is that if you read Revelation, which I hope you've all done many times by now, it'll help you a lot in our present conversation. You'll find that throughout Revelation, there are certain texts that are obscure, and there are certain texts that are clear. Oddly enough, people tend to fixate on the obscure texts and ignore the clear ones. But the rule of hermeneutics is rational priority. Namely, I first of all seize on the texts that are clear, lucid, explicit, unambiguous in their meaning, and I use those texts to shed light on texts that are more obscure. That's the proper procedure. When we reverse the order and immediately lock onto the obscure text and use that to interpret the rest of the book, again, we get ourselves into some difficulty. So the rule is clear texts shed light on obscure texts. The principle of genre. Revelation has multiple literary genres. Apocalyptic is the most conspicuous. It also has narrative, it has didactic, it has poetic. All of these are also genres found throughout the rest of the scriptures. And so if we find a particular image, a particular idea in Revelation, we should at least first of all ask, Is that idea, is that image, is that picture found elsewhere in the Bible? And if so, can we find in those other texts in the Old Testament or New Testament some guidance as to how possibly it's going to be viewed in Revelation? So we're asking the question of literary genre. We're asking whether these forms of genre have counterparts elsewhere. All right, finally, a couple of preliminary observations about the book. The fundamental theme of the book of Revelation is announced in the first verse. He apocalypsis tu Christu Jesu. The apocalypse, the unveiling, literally, of Jesus Christ. This is what the Bible is, or what the book of Revelation is about. It is not the apocalypse of geopolitical events thousands of years in the future. That's not the stated theme of the book. Jesus came and lived among us, the single greatest event of all human history. He came as God eternal and dwelt among us. But you see, if we had been there back in that historical setting, we might have missed it because it was not evident that this is eternal God. He came in the form of a servant. He came in the form of humility. This is what theologians call Christ incognito. And there was a sense in which there was a kind of ordinariness about the man, even though he was God among us.
The passion.
Are you sure that,
when we ripped the veil away and said, this is the one. This is God Almighty. This is the Christ of eternity who is here among us. And in a way, the book of Revelation is doing that. It's the apocalypse. It's the unveiling of this one. This is the one who lived among us. This is the one.
What do you think of that so far, Randy? I mean, I thought that Jesus is famous. His cousin was famous. His mother was famous. His
alleged father, who wasn't his real father.
Yeah, but he was famous too.
Well known.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah, it isn't like
he was
totally obscure.
Hey, we know who he is. He's the architect's son.
But his message had a veil. Without a doubt.
Keep going for a minute.
No, I'm just, there's a couple things I was thinking about. I
know. That's the way I get too. It's like, well, I was just thinking of something.
Yeah, and that's the time you really ought to comment. But
if you don't have it, you just wait.
No, but I was different terms.
There it
words,
is. I was even on the right chapter, Randy.
Particularly, with words in the Bible, whether it's an ass, an animal, and then how we perceive, what's the definition, when you use that word, it varies somewhat, but an ass is an ass, right, generally, regardless of how you use it. And then, do you speak to God, using biblical terms like that when they denote something that socially is more or less from, unless you're within a certain age group company, well, then it's more permissible. But I don't believe, our Father Abba has to, needs to distinguish any difference when it comes to intent and the manner of, how we are towards him. I mean, he knows everything about us to begin with. He knows our intentions and everything before we even something clicks, in our melon, So go figure. But that's what I was thinking about. and I don't know why exactly what he brought to my mind that I guess I thought maybe whether it needs clarification or not.
Want to hear?
I
Want to
just,
hear this? What this one?
and there's a number of words,
Right. Well,
or
we'll see if
meanings
we
to
can get to
words.
the bottom
And a
of.
lot of that is lost through the translation because I don't speak Hebrew
Right.
or
And I never
Greek
thought it
or
was that important. I thought, a couple of the hard things, I had my Strong's paper, but after a while, life gets in the way. You quit looking up, doing word searches by hand, the computer. But the Lord, He had it for a
words take
long
on
time.
new meanings and words don't matter anymore unless a woke whatever individual type scenario. But I mean, you hear both sides of asinine argument where all you
Oh,
need to do is
I
click
was
away.
looking this up to talk about was Jesus a carpenter or was he famous or something?
Yeah.
Because here's what I came up with anyway. Is these guys got a pretty good argument going here, that they're using a New American Standard. It's not my favorite. That you look for the word prostitute in that Bible. Guess what? It's never used. There were no prostitutes as far as the translators of the New American Standard Bible are concerned. Ever.
I thought that was the oldest occupation known
Well, you're
to
wrong.
mankind.
I
Huh?
think it's innkeeper. I
Oh,
don't know what they called them.
okay.
So anyway, they took offense. Is this not the carpenter? Mark chapter 6, verse 3, son of Mary. It was just like, here's
and his siblings,
here's these other guys going like, it's like
brothers and sisters.
it's like, wait a minute, isn't this who's a famous mom that has famous kids? It'd be like, isn't this that person? Isn't this the Brady Bunch mom? And they know all these people. It says that it's translated as carpenter in the 1611. Both of these, carpenter's son. The word we're looking at is tekon. King James.
But what does carpenter imply?
Well, we don't
Maybe
need to
more
worry
than
about
what.
it. We don't need to worry about it because are they right? Because many people think that, like a lot of things, they're not even close. It could be any type of gifted craftsman of wood, stone, or metal.
Engineer, yeah.
There are many people that believe that he was, from the very beginning, it said they believe that he was a metallurgist. And that involves smelting. There's just so many things it could be besides I pound nails for a living.
And where did them nails come from? Well, you might need metal.
Well, they all, and he was right there in Bethlehem, right next to.
Need some hardware for that project?
I gotta back up because this girl the other night, and that's what I was looking for and forgot. Her name of her channel is called Bible Miner, and I wanted to get. She has some good things about whatever we were talking about. She's real late century. Everything is Star Fort.
And how current is?
She's doing them. She's doing them every day, and they're long videos too.
Okay.
Now
so getting back to
now she's all over where the Crusades, the Islamic Beast, was that the little season of Satan Part 17, because she's all For now, I'm giving her lots of slack because I want her to talk to Ella Rose. So we'll listen to this as soon as you get tired of listening to him. I'm going to jump to something. Let's see. This had a spike of interest.
Yeah, he's laying his argument, for interpretation,
Jesus himself,
hermeneutics.
Right, and when we're reviewing the Bible, we can always go back later if we want to.
as much as he was being led out to be crucified, as Luke tells us. And a great multitude of the people followed him, and women who also mourned and lamented him. But Jesus, turning to them, said, "Daughters of Jerusalem, do not weep for me. Weep for yourselves and for your children. Indeed, the days are coming in which they will say, blessed are the barren, wombs that never bore, breasts that never nursed. And they will call to the mountains, fall on us, and to the hills, cover us." Between the sixth and seventh seals is a little interlude in which we hear of the protection of God's people. This is chapter 7. The 144,000 denominated as the 12 tribes of Israel. These are Christian believers who were Jewish, who are protected by a seal. So in spite of the cataclysms that are befalling all around them, they are protected. At the same time, coming out the other end of that great tribulation, an explosion of believers from all around the world, every nation, tribe, language, and people, and innumerable multitudes standing before the throne, waving palm branches, we hear in chapter 7. The point is that God protects his beleaguered Jewish Christian followers going into this tribulation, and yet the Christian message exploded to the world over the next decades as a result of the events that took place at this time. This is a realization of a picture that is painted for us many times in the Old Testament, in which Messiah comes not simply as the Messiah to the Jewish people, but the Messiah to the world. Isaiah 49, indeed, he says, it is too small a thing that you should be my servant to raise up the tribes of Jacob and to restore the preserved ones of Israel. I will make you as a light to the Gentiles, that you should be my salvation to the ends of the earth. That brings us to the seventh trumpet. The seventh trumpet, brings us to the seventh seal, which inaugurates then the seventh trumpet. The seven trumpets are presented or introduced in a strange little text right at the beginning of chapter 8, in which we're told there was silence in heaven for about a half an hour. We were Jewish readers of that text in the first century. We would all...
What's that?
Yeah, who doesn't recall the half hour of silence?
And some other crazy things going on around there too.
And I think that's a universal half hour, 48th of a full day, or, whatever it is. But you had a crossover in some song with it. You can still read what the text.
The answer to those prayers hurls to the earth the judgments that are going to come as God vindicates his people. The seventh of the seven trumpets is interestingly identified with the disclosing of the Ark of the Covenant. It reminds us a little bit of the trumpets that surrounded Jericho. And the seventh trumpet rolled out the Ark of the Covenant. You recall that rather dramatic story in the Old Testament. There's some have seen a parallel between the two here. All right, what are the seven trumpets? I'm not going to go through these in detail because time is after me here. But the first four are kind of, again, describing the collapse of political and natural order. The last three of the trumpets are also called woes. The first of them, locusts that come out of the abyss. The abyss in Revelation stands for the place of diabolical rule. It's the place of Satan's haunts. And now, as it were, these diabolical, demonic forces are unleashed, and the city itself goes into a kind of anarchic meltdown in which nobody's in control, in which open chaos is ruling, in which you are constantly living in fear of hunger and life and limb and bloodshed, and it's made even worse by a demonic attack from the outside.
Would that be like Gog and Magog?
As they're described, come and attack the city. So attacking from within, attacking from without, and just before the third trumpet sounds, we once again have a little interlude. once again, the people of God are highlighted. The first time, chapter 7, was the protection of God's people. Chapter 10 and 11, the mission of God's people. An angel comes down from heaven, great authority, great power, Christ himself certainly, holding a little book that lays open in his hand, the gospel message, that simple message that is carried to the world and brings the possibility of salvation to all who hear it. John is told in chapter 11 to measure the temple. In the Bible, to measure something is tantamount to protecting it.
Very
it's not
geometrical.
It's the naos. It's the inner sanctum, the holy of holies, we would say, the place of true worship. At the same time, the outer temple is to be trampled under the Gentiles. In a sense, what it's saying is the visible temple is to be destroyed, while the people of God, the true people of God, protected in that inner sanctum, are commissioned with their job of taking that little scroll that they've now eaten, you see, as John did, to the world. There are the two witnesses. The two witnesses, of course, bringing their condemning message against Jerusalem, which rejected her Messiah. Most likely Moses and Elijah, the two witnesses who were there with Jesus at the Transfiguration. The law and the prophets is really what they represent. The condemning message to the people of God was their own Bible. The law and the prophets gave them ample warning of the things that were befalling them. This brings us to the third woe, which is indeed the seventh trumpet. It is the realization of Jesus saying to his disciples, all authority is given unto me. Go, disciple the nations. Heaven is opened. The Ark of the Covenant appears. The centerpiece, the heart of the book of Revelation. The seventh angel sounded his trumpet, and there were loud voices in heaven that said, the kingdom of this world has become the kingdom of our Lord and of his Christ, and he will reign forever. And at that moment, the 24 elders fall down before God. They worship God. They say to Christ, now ruling, we give thanks to you, Lord God Almighty, the one who is and who was, because you have taken your great power and have begun to reign. The nations were angry, but your wrath has come.
How cool is that?
It's going to be wonderful. It's going to be wonderful.
It was. I'm sure it was.
I think this rock was close was close to being a dodecahedron. That's 5 sides right there.
Yeah, it doesn't have the holes and the knobs like.
No, but look at the right next door to it. It has.
It has. Yeah, it has.
And it would be a rare thing, and if it was found after, all of them were found after Satan was loosed in 1711 or 1666, depending on what calendars you're going by. It's just I'm just fascinated with those dodecahedrons. I dropped mine and it rolled away.
You'll find it again.
Yeah, I am listening. And it's gonna get interesting here in about just a couple of minutes. Just interrupting.
Oh, it's all been interesting.
Well, now you're going to find a time where you might want to say something.
Okay.
The time has come for judging, or I can read vindicating, more or less vindicating God's dead through history, vindicating the dead, rewarding your servants, the prophets, and your saints, and those who reverence your name, both small and great, and destroying those who destroy the earth. All right. We have 7 vials in chapter 16. Between chapters 11 and 15, really, you've got 3 chapters which are a kind of apocalyptic description of what took place in the first century. It's really not hard to follow. We're told of a woman who gives birth to a son who will rule the nations with a rod of iron. But we're told that that son is attacked by a dragon. Humanly, we think of Herod, but of course it's vastly deeper than that. Diabolical attacks on this one. But the son is caught up to the throne. There is war in heaven and Satan loses. Jesus came to destroy the works of the devil. He came to displace Satan from his position as the prince of the power of the air. And that conflict was fought and won by King Jesus in the first century, and Satan was cast out. He went after the woman, but she was carried away. She was protected literally in the southern Judean wilderness there, away from the destruction of Jerusalem, at which time we're told that Satan turned his attack against the rest of her children, that is, the rest of Christian believers throughout the empire, summoning two minions. One, a beast from the sea. The beast from the sea, of course, Rome. The beast from the earth, the land, would be Israel, corrupt state, corrupt church united. That's an ugly recipe, you know, and we've seen a lot of that in history, but here we see it for its maybe in its more dramatic expression at this point. The sealed, nevertheless, in chapter 14 are protected, and we have 7 angels who now announce the unfolding of this final set. We're almost done. The 7 vials. I'm not going to go through these in detail, time doesn't permit it. But there's a preamble, chapter 15, the shortest chapter in Revelation, talks about God's people standing beside a sea. And they're singing the song of Moses. And of course, the song of Moses is the Exodus song. As people escape from a place where judgment is about to fall.
Not Deuteronomy 32?
There's 3
Right.
civilizations that
Whatever.
Sodom, Babylon. In all 3 cases, God's people escaped judgment just before it fell. These people are singing the song of Moses. They've escaped the judgment just before it falls, and then
Which
immediately
is really God's song, because God told him to write it.
Go ahead, man.
Yeah, I mean, we covered this a few nights ago. You know, beginning in, wasn't it Deuteronomy? I mean, I got my Bible here, and I have a light, but
Right, Deuteronomy 32 is the song.
you know, and leading up to the song that God told Moses to write. So who wrote it? You know, it's biblical text. And leading up the narrative to that song, God tells Moses to write this song, and he tells him why. You know, and he explains to Moses why. Because this is just before Moses is going to be laid with his father.
I'm listening, but I did find prostitute used 3 times in 2 verses, so I just was wondering, you know, keep going, man.
Yeah.
I'm going to go there right now.
And the Israelites, God tells Moses, the Israelites are going to be like harlots. You know, if you need to go to Ezekiel to figure out what the heck actually happened, you know, maybe you ought to do that, but that's later in life, you know, at this time that when it was recorded.
The Lord's portion is his people, Jacob, his allotted inheritance. And he found Moses in, in a desert land. He was like an apple of God's eye too, Moses was.
Well, right, but why would you go, like you say, you know, why, and that maybe it is human nature, unless you've been, you know, the Lord tugging on your heartstrings, because it's not within the melon, it's from somewhere else in the body, certainly, to get you to think differently. You know,
right. Well, a lot of times people don't want to read the whole real lead up to Deuteronomy, because it's to that song, because it does the exact opposite of guarantee them victory. It tells them in no uncertain terms are going down, down, baby.
Yeah. It sucks, and it's going to suck a lot.
I'm going to pick it up when things are going good in verse 5. Deuteronomy 30, verse 5. And the Lord your God will bring you into a land that your fathers possessed, that you may possess it. And he will make you more prosperous and numerous than your fathers. And the Lord your God will circumcise your heart and the heart of your offspring, so that you will love the Lord your God with all your heart and with all your soul, that you may live. And the Lord your God will put all these curses on your foes and enemies who persecute you, and you shall again obey the voice of the Lord and keep all his commandments that I command you today. The Lord your God will make you abundantly prosperous, yea, for the Hebrews, in all the works of your hands, because the Lord made them that way, just like he made us that way, in the fruit of your womb, and in the fruit of your cattle, and in the fruit of your ground. He's blessing like there's no tomorrow, for the Lord will again take delight in prospering you. He was already mad at them in the wilderness. He almost took them out a couple times. They're bad. Just I'm giving a spoiler alert so you don't break your heart. He made them good. And he took delight in your fathers when you obeyed the voice of the Lord your God to keep his commandments and his statutes that are written in this part of the book of remembrance of the law. Got him there. When you turn to the Lord God with all your heart and with all your soul. For this commandment that I command you today is not too hard for you, neither is it far off. It is not in heaven that you should say, who will ascend to heaven for us and bring it to us, that we may hear it and do it. Neither is it beyond the sea that you should say, who will go over the sea for us. That's this river's words. Water is all difficult in the Bible. And bring it to us. We're going to go to 15. See that I have set before you today life and good, death and evil, if you obey the commandments of the Lord your God that I command you today, by loving the Lord your God, by walking in his ways, and by keeping his commandments and his statutes and his rules, then you shall live and multiply. And the Lord your God will bless you in the land that you are entering to take possession. But if your hearts turn away and you will not hear and are drawn away to worship other gods and serve them, I declare to you today that you shall surely perish. You shall not live long in the land that you are going over the Jordan to enter and possess. I call heaven and earth to witness against you today that I have set before you life and death, blessing and curse. Therefore choose life, that you and your offspring may live, loving the Lord your God, obeying his voice and holding fast to him, for he is your life and length of days, that you may dwell in the land that the Lord swore to your fathers, to Abraham, to Isaac, to Jacob, to give to them. Covenant keepers, all three. Now, Moses continues, and he was 120.
Choices and consequences.
And I am no longer able. He got old, 120. He gives them on to Joshua.
What's changed within these choices and consequences between then and even today? What's changed?
Joshua is going to be commissioned. Joshua has his hands full, and he
stop
knows
the sun. Joshua's going to ask God to stop the sun, and he does. Yeah, and he does. I mean, he doesn't ask. He doesn't ask God to send the sun backwards. Like in Isaiah's time. But I'm just saying, what's
there was
changed?
no other time.
What has changed between choices and consequences?
Don't leave us hanging, man. Go. What?
I'm asking. You explain to me.
Well, we have not because we ask not. We ask amiss. We forget the power, wonder-working power in the blood.
Yeah, and then tensions, and as far as whatever.
All right, I'm going to be reading from
searching the heart.
31,
Searching the heart on
31,
intentions.
verse 14. And the Lord said to Moses, behold, the days approach when you must die. Call Joshua and present yourself in the tent of meeting, that I may commission him. And Moses and Joshua went and presented themselves in the tent of meeting, and the Lord appeared in the tent in a pillar of cloud, and the pillar of cloud stood over the entrance of the tent. And the Lord said to Moses, behold, you are about to lie down with your fathers. Then this people, the Lord said to Moses, behold, you are about to lie down with your fathers. Then this people will rise, and here's another word that's not in the New American Standard Version, will whore after the foreign gods among them. Joshua knew they kept them. Moses knew.
Harlots in their hearts.
After the foreign gods among them in the land they are entering, and they will forsake me and break my covenant that I have made with them. Then my anger will be kindled against them in that day, and I will forsake them and hide my face from them, and they may be devoured, and many evils and troubles will come upon them, so that they may say in that day, hopefully, have not these evils come upon us, because God is not among us. And wait, hold on, what's God going to do? I will surely hide my face in that day, because all of the evil, what kind of choices? They must have been making the wrong choices, Randy.
And what you're reading here reminds me of Miriam's song. Right after they, went through the Red Sea, and then lo and behold, between Aaron making the calf and her calling out Moses, she ends up with leprosy for a week.
She got a little full of herself, didn't she? She got a little.
I'm just saying. There's a lot of repetition. And some people may find it boring, and a big yawn.
Got to go outside the camp to appreciate being back in the camp.
That's all. I'm just saying. I'm just throwing it out there.
So here we're leading up to the song, and that was. I just wanted them to know what. That's sad, isn't it?
I'm saying Miriam's song. It was a terrific song. Well, and I'm sure it was spirit inspired, but when Aaron and Miriam, or Miriam especially, because she ended up with a leprosy. Yeah, for what it's worth. Yeah, it is what it is.
All right, because I want to get right to it.
It is what it was.
I'm gonna skip down to verse 26. Take this book of the law and put it by the side of the ark of the covenant of the Lord your God, that it may be there as a witness against you. For I know how rebellious and stubborn you are. Behold, even today, while I am yet alive with you, you have been rebellious against the Lord. How much more after my death? Assemble to me all the elders of your tribes and your officers, that I may speak these words in their ears, and call heaven and earth to witness against them. For I know that after my death you will surely act corruptly, and turn aside from the way that I have commanded you. And in the days to come, evil will befall you, because you will do what is evil in the sight of the Lord, provoking him to anger through the works or work of your hands. And that
And
was
that reminds you of the judges, they did what they thought was, in their own minds, or whatever, however you want to translate that. That's a familiar judges. Why they did what they did, when they did it, blah, blah, blah. And it was disgusting.
hey,
For the most.
where did Miriam sing that song? I'm just guessing right now.
Well, that's earlier on. That's Exodus, obviously.
Okay, well,
but
yeah, well, I'm in Exodus 14. They've just crossed the Red Sea, and it says in Exodus 14:30, thus the Lord saved Israel that day from the hand of the Egyptians, and Israel saw the Egyptians dead on the seashore, and Israel saw the great power that the Lord used against the Egyptians. So the people feared the Lord, and they believed in the Lord and in his servant Moses. Now, is this the song of Miriam and Moses, or is there another one? I will sing unto the Lord, for he has triumphed gloriously, the horse and the rider. He is thrown into the sea. The Lord is my strength and my song. He has become my salvation. This is my God, and I will praise him. My father's God, and I will exalt him. The Lord is a man of war. The Lord is his name. Now, that doesn't, where's Miriam's song? I got to look it up. Then we got Brett.
Or Google it. But yeah, you're saying Exodus 15?
That's what I was just reading, yeah. I was reading that one from Exodus 15. That's another song of Moses. I thought it was a song of Miriam.
Yeah, but there's one of I know there's one of Miriam.
There's the Magnificat of Mary. And
well, okay, maybe.
No,
maybe I'm mistaken.
No, I thought that Miriam sings a song. See, they're saying that is Miriam's song, because I always thought it was Miriam's victory song also. And they were ascribing it to Moses, and I was kind of going like, wait a minute. I remember it being Mary.
That's the whole point of singing it to the youth, so they remembrance the whole
Miriam and Moses singing a song
of where you're coming from, where you're going to.
They're saying at that time she was probably 95 years old.
Yeah, I don't know anything.
Wow.
Yeah, Moses was the youngest child, obviously, because Miriam was involved with putting him in the basket and watching over. So, Pharaoh's daughter, she could suggest, getting a nursing mother for the baby, and, the whole, yeah.
Okay, so after the song, in verse 20, it says, then Miriam the prophetess, Aaron's sister, took a tambourine in her hand and went down with all the women behind her with tambourines and dancing. Verse 21, Miriam sang to them, sing to the Lord, for he is highly exalted. The horse and its rider he has thrown into the sea. So she was singing along. It was there, it was a song that Moses and all the Israelites sang, and she was punching it up. That's pretty cool.
Yeah, a remembrance. Yeah, definitely.
And we all remember she was there watching Moses when that evil king said, go kill your babies, which always made it so ridiculously hard for me to understand what would drive, why, what What madness would drive
any of the Israelites would want to return?
Why would Judah want to go back to Egypt? They did go back. They didn't just want to return, they did. They kidnapped the prophet Jeremiah and took him back to Egypt. Now, otherwise, Jeremiah 44 makes no sense because it starts like this. The word that came to Jeremiah concerning the Judeans who lived in the land of Egypt, at Migdol, Memphis, Pathros. There was the group that surrendered to Babylon and Nebuchadnezzar the way they were supposed to. Then there was the false king. What was he? Zerubbabel? And then there was 1/3 of the tribe of Judah that ran away back to Egypt. They got their wish. They always wanted to go back to Egypt.
Yeah, and they dragged Jeremiah with them also.
Right. And he kept going like, why are you doing this to me? You know? Well,
to record it.
Right.
Yeah, to record
and so, after he explained to him, God did it because he'd hoped that you'd repent. Then all the men who knew that their wives had made offerings to other gods, and all the women who stood by, all the people who lived in Egypt during the time of Jeremiah, everybody, as for the word that you have spoken to us in the name of the Lord, we will not listen to you. But very religiously and piously, they say they'd rather keep their vows to the Queen of Heaven and pour out drink offerings to her, because basically what they're saying is, we're done with you. We had plenty of food and prospered. We had her. They didn't want to be reminded about you. So they had stopped making offerings to the Queen of Heaven, but now that they're back in Egypt, it's on, baby. And the women said, when we made these offerings to the Queen of Heaven and poured out drinks to her, which probably could include abortion and medical cannibalism, was it without our husband's approval that we made cakes bearing her image and poured out drinks to her? Then all the people said, beat it, Jeremiah. We kidnapped you. We don't know why you're here, and Jeremiah just rips him a new one,
Yeah, we know how it went down.
Yeah,
it's it's recorded.
Right. He's basically said this is one
He's
of the
going to bury stones in the past and say Nebuchadnezzar is going to take you.
Right. He ends up in verse 30 saying, thus says the Lord, behold, I will give Pharaoh Hophra, king of Egypt, into the hand of his enemies and into the hand of those who seek his life, and Zedekiah, king of Judah, into the hand of Nebuchadnezzar, who was his enemy and sought his life. Then the word came to Baruch and these guys, thus says the Lord, woe is me, for the Lord has added sorrow to my pain. I am weary with my groaning, and I find no rest. Remember, the book of Malachi teaches they wrote this book of remembrance, and although this is a short chapter that seems very out of place, it's got to be here for a reason. So he's saying, woe is me, for the Lord has added sorrow to my pain. I am worried. And he's talking to Baruch, the son of Neriah.
Hey, Alan, I have to interrupt.
Man. You get time to go night-night?
Distraction from a spouse, so.
Okay, brother. All right, man. I'll take it easy. Peace and love, brother.
I love you. Yeah, later.
All right, so Fractal Dustberry. Amen. Hallelujah. Thank you, brother. Randy had to go. It's time to go night-night. They got to go to church in the morning, or she does. And it was very kind of her to have Randy stay on until 11 o'clock. The reason I was showing Bruges is I think that this was one of the first towns where it says in Revelation 12 about the earth swallowed the water. I think that was around Bruges, because that's when the first canals were discovered, and people went like, hey, look, they made aqueducts and all of these, look at all these cities. Because when they first came out, let me read it. And a great sign appeared in heaven, a woman clothed with the sun, with the moon under her feet, on her head a crown of 12 stars. She was pregnant and was crying out in birth pains and the agony of giving birth. And another sign appeared in heaven. Behold, a great red dragon with 7 heads and 10 horns, and on his head 7 diadems. His tail swept down a third of the stars of heaven and cast them to earth. And the dragon stood before the woman who was about to give birth, so that when she bore her child, he might devour it. She gave birth to a male child, one who is to rule all the nations with a rod of iron. But her child was caught up to God and to his throne. Perhaps spiritually, this I don't know. And the woman fled into the wilderness, where she has a place prepared by God in which she is to be nursed for 1,260 days. Now war rose in heaven, Michael and his angels fighting against the dragon, and the dragon and his angels fought back, but he was defeated. And there was no longer any place for them in heaven. And the great dragon was thrown down, that ancient serpent, who is called the devil and Satan. He is also called that in Revelation chapter 20. He heard a voice, now salvation and the power of the kingdom of our God and the authority of our Christ has come. To those that were thrown down, they have conquered him by the blood of the Lamb. Woe, the time was short, and when the dragon saw that he had been thrown down to earth, he pursued the woman who had given birth to the male, but the woman was given 2 wings of a great eagle, that she might fly from the serpent into the wilderness, to the place where she was nourished for a time and times and a half time. And the serpent poured water like a river out of his mouth after the woman, to sweep her away with a flood. But the earth came to the help of the woman, and the earth opened its mouth and swallowed the river that the dragon had poured from his mouth. The dragon became furious with the woman and went off to make war on the rest of her offspring, on those who keep the commandments of God and hold to the testimony of Jesus. And he stood on the sand of the sea. I think Bruges and the river Z, that's spelled Z-E-E or Z-E-E if you're anywhere but the United States. That's like the word aluminum. Obviously, accents and words were taught by different teachers very shortly, but some words like that stuck out. He looks very interesting. A lot of pictures of the Bruges Canals. It's a living, active, complete star fort. Wonder what was up there. Free energy. Wonder how old that one is. Rabbit trail. The Z Bruges is a village that, because the Bruges and Zeebrugge are connected by these canals that I think were opened up during the flood, and people started realizing that, you know, there were some new angelic things. Jesus was being born. John the Baptist was being born. The Greeks, the Persians, the Zoroastrians, the Medes were all in on waiting for Jesus ever since Daniel. And well, it started when Queen Esther married into the family, and a Jew married into the Greeks, and that from there on out they saved the Jewish race, built the church back up, and so Jesus could be born in Jerusalem. A big part of it. This is the canal that opened up somehow when the earth swallowed the water, and then it all around the world they knew that these were opening up. Didn't it seem like Randy was on here for longer? I thought it'd be longer than 2 hours. Now, the thing about Bible Minor, remember I mentioned that there was the one young lady in Australia, and her channel is named Bible Minor. Besides me, she's the only person I've heard posit that it's very possible that why are people, you know, we don't need to look for the beast anymore. The beast was back then. Why couldn't it have been Herod? He killed everyone under 2 years old. He was called Herod the Great builder. And at the end, when he gave a speech, everybody praised him and said, "You're like a god." But then at the end, he died like a man. It's possible. I want to hear some of that.
It speaks like a dragon and has 2 horns. Now, why does it have 2 horns? And as we know, horns are powers or kingdoms or rulership. If we look at the Islamic religion, we have, this is an article in the Times of Israel. It's explaining about the Caliph and the Sultan. And it says, the word Caliph comes from the Arabic Khalifa, which means succession. The Caliph is regarded as a successor to the Prophet Muhammad. The Sultanate, on the other hand, is a more secular form of government led by a political and military leader, the Sultan, whose powers are basically only in those 2 spheres. So the Sultan would be someone like Saladin. And it goes on to say, after the Ottoman defeat of the Mamluks in 1517, the titles of Caliph and Sultan were joined as one. However, originally in the Islamic kingdom or empire, we have these 2 horns of Caliph and Sultan. Today we don't have a Sultan, and that's what this article is about. It says that in modern Turkey, Erdogan also has a dream. His dream is to become the Caliph and Sultan of his country, but his dream is not for the welfare of Turkey, but rather for the...
You know what? I'm going to interrupt it and look for that video where she does talk about it's possible Herod, because that to me was intriguing. So it looks like that was the way. Now here's one about the other Herods.
The Herodian kingdom of Judea was a client state of the Roman Republic from 37 BCE, when Herod the Great was appointed king of the Jews by the Roman Senate. When Herod died in 4 BCE, the kingdom was divided among his sons into the Herodian tetrarchy. Antipater the Idumean, born 113 or 114 BCE, died in 43 BCE, was the founder of the Herodian dynasty and father of Herod the Great, according to Joseph. Verse 6. Now Esau learned that Isaac had blessed Jacob and had sent him to Paddan Aram to take a wife from there, and that when he blessed him, he commanded him, do not marry a Canaanite woman, and that Jacob had obeyed his father and mother and had gone to Paddan Aram. Esau then realized how displeasing the Canaanite women were to his father Isaac, so he went to Ishmael and married Mahaleth, the sister of Nebareth and daughter of Ishmael, son of Abraham, in addition to the wives he already had. I believe the logic here from Esau was that he would marry a daughter of the people of his father's tribe to please his father and his mother. However, the Ishmaelites were from the son that Abraham had with Sarah's handmaiden, the Egyptian Hagar, and they were a people that did not receive the blessing of Abraham, which was given to Isaac, the younger son, also repeated again with Jacob and Esau.
And reiterated in the book of Romans, where it tells us that, Esau was not the son of promise, and it was seed, singular, that was going to be through that blessed line, through Isaac.
So in the long run, all Esau achieved was creating a people of mixed groups from the region. Therefore, the Edomite people, the descendants of Esau, were a mixed nation from the Canaanites, the Hittites, and the Ishmaelites, and they mixed the religions of their gods. Was a Hasmonean Maccabean leader and Jewish high priest of the 2nd century BCE, born 164 BCE, reigned from 134 BCE until his death in 104 BCE. In rabbinic literature, he is often referred to as Yohanan Cohen Gadol, John the High Priest. The Hasmonean Civil War was a civil war between two claimants to the Hasmonean Jewish crown. What began as an inter-Jewish conflict became a highly decisive conflict that included the Nabatean kingdom and ended the Roman involvement. This conflict resulted in the loss of Jewish independence.
Yeah, I don't believe in the Maccabean revolt. Give me something about Herod.
The Herodian dynasty in 37 BCE, the installation of Herod the Great and Idumean as king in 37 BCE made Judea spring. He will strike your head and you will strike his heel. Genesis 3:15. King Herod the Great was the first of the Herodian line of Idumean kings of Judea. Herod the Great persecuted the Jews. The start of Herod's reign was marked by bloodshed. His first aim was to establish his rule on a more solid base using political acumen. Almost immediately, he sent envoys to the Parthian king to get Hyrcanus back from Babylon. The Parthian king was happy to let him go because he was becoming dangerously popular among the Jews living in Babylonia. Although Hyrcanus was unfit to become high priest again, Herod kept his father-in-law in high esteem. The support of the old monarch gave an appearance of legality to his own rule. The new king started an extensive...
Wow, look at these brick buildings. This looks like the old high school I used to work at. Those brick buildings at schools. How old is everything? I think Armageddon was World War I, and then the whole 1,000 years, maybe. Now I'm beginning to think, the rest of the dead didn't live again for the 1,000 years, and the whole Bible was just, because everything's so recent and just cleaned up in the last couple hundred years. I mean, this is stupid. Man, I'm glad I have a theology that's worked out, because the questions that are left are driving me crazy.
Building program, new walls of Jerusalem and a citadel. which guarded his temple. The fortress was called Antonia, in order to please Herod's patron Mark Antony. Coins were minted in his own name and showed an incense burner on a tripod, intended to signify Herod's care for a Mosaic law. And the new king continued to please the Romans to make sure that they would continue their support. He sent lavish gifts to their representative in the East, Mark Antony, and to his mistress.
Man, I don't even believe there were Greeks.
These gifts almost were Herod's demise.
Although I think she has an intriguing idea, I think she might need to get back into a little bit more flamenco. And that the Greeks in a white Cleopatra, I just don't think so. I don't think so. If you haven't seen this, I watched it with Tommy. It's more about the Sutros bath and how weird that is. This is
allegedly took place in the 13th century BC, and the foundation of Rome, which is said to have occurred in the 8th century BC, is 500 years. This means one, the Trojan War occurred 500 years later, or the chronographers are deliberately lying about Aeneas and Ulysses founding Rome. Also, what happened to Romulus in this scenario? Rome is supposedly named after Romulus. Could Romulus have been Ulysses? A lot of questions arise, as you can see, and they only increase in number once we start delving further in. According to a different version, the city was named by Ramus, the son of Ulysses. Could this mean that Ramus, or Remus, the brother of Romulus, was the son of Ulysses? This would be impossible within the paradigm of the Scaligerian chronology. The historian B. Nice has the following to say about it. Rome, as well as many other Italian cities, was considered to have been founded by the heroes of Greece and Troy that wound up in those parts. There is a variety of legends to prove it. The most ancient one, which was quoted as early as the 4th century BC and later by Aristotle, claims that the city was founded by Aeneas and Ulysses, and received its name from the Trojan woman Roma. Another version suggests Ramus, the son of Ulysses, to have been its founder. Let us reiterate that there are about 500 years separating this date from the consensual one. Such tremendous fluctuations in the determination of a date as important as that is the foundation of the city of Rome affect the datings of a great number of documents that use it as a temporal reference point. The well-known History by Titus Livy is one of them. Actually, the identification of the city with the Italian Rome is one of the hypotheses of the Scaligerian chronology. The possibility that the city can be identified as the famous Rome upon the Bosphorus, or Constantinople, today Istanbul, also known as Tsargrad, or the City of Kings, cannot be excluded. So were they even talking about the Italian?
I exclude it.
Old writings? By and large, historians are of the opinion that the traditional authors, the most fundamental one doubtlessly being the historical opus by Titus Livy. It is believed that Titus Livy was born around 59 BC and described a 700-year period of Roman history. 35 books survived out of the original 144. The first publications of his writings took place in 1469 and was based on a manuscript of unknown origin currently lost. T. Mommsen wrote, quote, "In what concerns the global chronicle, everything was a lot worse. The development of the historical science gave hope for traditional history to be verified by documents and other dependable sources. But the hope was buried in complete frustration. The more research was conducted and the deeper it went, the more obvious the difficulties in writing a critical history of Rome became." End quote. But furthermore, Mommsen also tells us that the numeric inveracities have been systematic in the works of Valero and
Wow, dude, you're hitting us with names too fast, too hard right now, dude. Come on, lighten up.
43 years. Egyptology today is still not a very old discipline, and it has primarily been the domain of a very few
That's
researchers,
better.
And the results of their research have been popularized in too much haste. Thus, many erroneous views had come into existence, which resulted in the inevitable sobering when Egyptology became a lot less vogue and the excessive trust in the results of the research was lost. To this day, the construction of the Egyptian chronology remains impossible. The situation with the list of kings compiled by Sumerian priests is even more complex. The archaeologist Al-Wuli says, "It was a historical skeleton of sorts, one that resembled our chronological tables. But, sadly, this list was of little utility. By and large, the chronology of the king list makes no sense." Furthermore, he says, the dynastical sequences, have been set arbitrarily. We see that the great antiquity ascribed to these lists today contradicts modern archaeological information. Let us give just one example that we consider representative enough. Telling us about the excavations of what we consider to be the most ancient royal Sumerian sepulchres, dated roughly to the 3rd millennium BC, Woolley mentions a series of findings of golden toiletry, which was of Arabic origin and belonged to the early 13th century AD, according to one of the best experts in the field. Woolley patronizingly calls the expert's mistake a forgivable one, since no one had thought such advanced art could have existed in the 3rd millennium BC. Unfortunately, the development of the entire critical concept and the propagation of the hypercritical current of the late 19th and early 20th century froze, due to the sheer lack of objective statistic methods at the time, ones that could provide for the independent and objective verification of the previous chronological identifications. And what he's saying here is that Egyptologists in the past and currently lack methods to independently date basically anything, meaning that all of our datings are going to have to rely on data that we already have. And much of that so-called data is merely the Scaligerian chronology. Let us move on to the problems of dating the ancient sources themselves. Since the framework of the global Scaligerian chronology was constructed as a result of the analysis of the chronological indications given by the ancient sources, it is natural that the issue of their origin should be of interest to this topic. Modern history has very little evidence that concerns the genesis of these ancient manuscripts. The general observation is made that the overwhelming majority of these documents surfaced during the Renaissance epoch that allegedly superseded the Dark Ages. The discovery of manuscripts often happened under circumstances that forbade the analysis which could allow the critical dating of such findings. So a lot of what we consider to be ancient is totally based on manuscripts which surfaced during the Renaissance. In the 19th century, two historians, Hocart and Ross, published the results of their research proving that the famous ancient Roman history by Tacitus was really written by the well-known Italian humanist Bracciolini. Fomenko notes that he deems the history by Tacitus to be an edited original, that is, a partial forgery and not a complete one. However, the events related therein have been misdated and transposed far back in time. The history of the discovery of Tacitus's books really provokes a great many questions. It was Bracciolini who discovered and published many oppuses of ancient writers, and the circumstances of these discoveries and their datings have never been related in detail. In the 15th century, a handful of famous humanists were the first ones to familiarize Europe with the achievements of ancient Greek thought. Byzantium gave the West almost all of the known ancient Greek manuscripts. And so, the major part of the manuscripts that our knowledge of the Greek sciences are based on consists of Byzantine copies made 500 to 1500 years after the death of their authors. According to the Scaligerian history, the entire bulk of the ancient classical literature only surfaced during the Renaissance. In most cases, detailed analysis shows us that the obscurity of the literature's origins and the lack of documentation concerning its passage through the so-called Dark Ages leads one to suspect that none of these texts had really existed before the dawn of the Renaissance. For instance, the oldest copies of the so-called incomplete collection of Cicero's texts are said to have been made in the 9th or 10th century AD. However, one instantly finds out that the original of the incomplete collection had perished a long time ago. In the 14th to 15th century, there was a surge of interest in Cicero. So, finally, in about the year 1420, the Milanese professor Barziza decided to undertake a rather precarious endeavor of filling in the gaps in the incomplete collection with his own writings for the sake of consequentiality. However, before he could finish this volume of work, a miracle occurred. A forlorn manuscript with the complete text of all the rhetorical works of Cicero's becomes unearthed in a parochial Italian town by the name of Lodi. Barziza and his students eagerly embrace the new discovery, arduously decipher its ancient script, and finally produce a readable copy. Subsequent copies constitute the actual complete collection. Meanwhile, the irrecoverable happens. The original of the collection, the manuscript of Lodi, becomes abandoned, since no one wants to confront the textual difficulties it presents, and finally it gets sent back to Lodi, where it disappears without a trace. Nothing is known of what happened to the manuscript since 1428. The European philologists still lament the loss. Here we see two miniatures that we are told are...
How would you lament a loss? Would it be with moaning? Would it be silent brooding?
From the 15th century. Both include Cicero, depicted as a medieval writer. Here he is on the left of this one.
and here he is on the right on this one. In both cases, we see a medieval setting. Cicero and the other characters are in medieval clothes, which might mean that whoever painted these believed Cicero lived in the medieval time, shortly before the time this was painted. Or if these many Renaissance painters had no idea what people looked like before the medieval times, or they made absolutely no effort to depict them any differently. The dating of most of the ancient sources was performed in the 16th and 17th century, and the methods and criteria they used are mostly unknown to us. Here we see an ancient panoramic view of Rome from the Geometry by Euclides. What we see is a medieval Rome. Here we see a miniature depicting the ancient Archimedes as a medieval scientist. Archimedes follows the pattern already known to us. All of the modern editions of Archimedes' works have been based on the lost manuscript of the 15th century. It is assumed that the first manuscripts of Archimedes reached Europe quite late.
Man, I would assume nothing. I would assume he's torturing this child to get adrenochrome for all I know. I mean, I see nothing but their weird McDonald's going on, their globe earth, alchemy, Archimedes, pull your sword from the stone. This is a complex Ouroboros. This is, these guys.
In 1204 AD, and the first translation is said to have been made in 1269. The first printed editions apparently have appeared in 1503, and the first Greek editions only in 1544, which is quite strange. So the works of Archimedes only entered scientific circulation in the 16th century. A book called Conical Sections by the ancient Apollonius was not published until 1537. But it was said that Kepler was the first to discover the significance of conical sections, or ellipses, in astronomy, and he didn't live to see the publication of the complete works of Apollonius. So the body of work of ancient Apollonius only comes to publication after Kepler had already established the theory. And by the way, could the works of the ancient Apollonius just be an edited version of the Pole Copernicus? The name Apollonius is almost identical to Polonius, a Pole, a native of Poland, or Polonia. The astronomer Copernicus was the immediate precursor of the astronomer Kepler, and Copernicus was a Pole. Let's move on to timekeeping in the Middle Ages.
Let's move on to something. We've saw that one. Now, these are, there's just a little bit more we need to get down with some of this flamenco. This one, did Greece exist? This is
Art
still
and literature under the influence of classical models in the 14th and 16th centuries. But music. So if a poet named Homer did exist, he probably lived between 750 or 650 BC in Scaligerian chronology. According to Plato, Homer was known as the first teacher of the tragedians, and indeed the teacher of all Greece. Another aspect which is not well known is whether Homer was literate or not. In other words, did Homer actually write down the poems himself, or did he dictate them to a literate scribe? The second option seems more likely if the poet was indeed blind. Most scholars think that Homer's poems took on a fixed written form 1 or 2 centuries after his death. They believe his poems merely existed in an oral form when Homer was alive, and that the Iliad and the Odyssey took on a fixed and written form as late as the 6th century BC. In any case, both poems are said to have been permanently copied and archived by a special commission. Another peculiar aspect of Homer is the unusual character of his name. This particular name appears to be rather unique in the 3 millennia of Greek history. There seems to be only a few exceptions, and these happen to be found in the 13th century AD. At this time, a whole family bore a name which is quite close to Homer's, the Saint Omer clan, who played a key role in medieval Greece between the years 1200 and 1314 AD. The Saint Omer clan was a family of Frankish knights who came from what is today northern France. Greece at this time had fallen under Frankish rule, and thus often referred to as Franco-Cratia. Godfrey of St. Omer, for example, was one of the founding members of the famed Knights Templar in the year 1119. An 1800-year chronological shift would redate Homer's life around 1050 AD, just a few decades before the arrival of the St. Omer family in Greece. Homer's poems are supposed to have taken on a fixed written form in the middle of the 6th century BC, which means that perhaps Homer did live at that later time rather than the earlier, merely writing down poems that had remained exclusively oral until then, so he was the one writing down a traditional poem or traditional story. In this case, the Thanksgiving effect would have created the myth of Homer living earlier than he actually did, and taking the mid-6th century BC and applying an 1800-year chronological shift takes us to the mid-13th century AD, the exact time when the St. Omer clan ruled over Frankish Greece. Is it possible that the real Homer was actually a member of the St. Omer family who had the famous oral epic written down by a scribe at the time? It is also interesting to note that in Homer's poem, the Iliad, Greeks are mostly referred to not as Greeks or Hellenes, but as Achaeans. The name appears to be used no less than 598 times. The other two names used in the poem are used only 29 and 138 times respectively. Why were the Greeks called Achaeans? The reason why it is so is that in ancient times, Achaea supposedly referred to the whole of Greece, which means the Achaeans were Greeks. Later on, there was a change. The region called Achaea restricted itself to the northernmost region of the Peloponnese. Under the Romans, there was another change. Achaea covered once more the whole of the Peloponnese, as well as part of eastern and northern Greece. It changed again after the fall of Rome, and became once more a small regional unit in the northern Peloponnese. Here we see a smaller example of phantom events. Let's recap this briefly. The term Achaean has successfully designated in Greece, number 1, Greeks living in the Peloponnese and beyond, number 2, Greeks living only in the northernmost part of the Peloponnese, number 3, Greeks and Romans living in the Peloponnese and beyond, number 4, Greeks living only in the northernmost part of the Peloponnese, number 5, Greeks and Franks living in a principality covering most or all of the Peloponnese, number 6, Greeks living only in the northernmost part of the Peloponnese. History, so it looks, appears to have repeated itself not just once, but twice. Numbers 1 and 2 are identical to numbers 3 and 4, and are also identical to number 5 and 6. Is history really repeating itself, or are the first couples of numbers on the list phantom duplicates of couple 5 and 6, which occurred last? According to mainstream historians, the Greek Dark Ages are a period lasting more than 4 centuries during which the Mycenaean palaces and cities were suddenly abandoned or destroyed. The problem is that the archaeological record does not provide any convincing explanation for such a collapse. Apparently, the setting of the Greek Dark Ages between 1200 BC and 750 BC is due to the necessity for Greek historians to conform to Egyptologists, who placed the Egyptian 18th dynasty in the 15th to 14th centuries BC, as there is no doubt that the high point of the ancient Greek culture is contemporaneous to the Egyptian 18th dynasty, as these artifacts are found together in many archaeological digs. But what if dating the Egyptian 18th dynasty were plain wrong? Indeed, before Egyptologists placed this dynasty at a particular time depth, the ancient Greek Mycenaean era was thought to be much closer to us. It is then an enticing possibility that these Greek Dark Ages never happened, and that the Mycenaean era immediately preceded the Archaic period. Getting back to Homer, the St. Omer clan owes its name to the town of St. Omer, which is today situated in the northernmost part of France. Is the Odyssey set in northern Europe? The Odyssey is presumed to describe Ulysses' voyage into the Mediterranean Sea, and Troy is supposed to be situated in modern Turkey. While there is no reason to fully reject these statements, we may wonder whether or not the poem includes geographical features of the Atlantic and northern Europe as well. That Ulysses' travels might have taken place in the Atlantic Ocean is by no means a recent theory. Greek geographer Strabo, who allegedly lived in the 1st century BC and early 1st century AD, already voiced such an opinion. Many other authors have contended that Ulysses' sea trip took place mostly in northern Europe. According to Dutch authors, Troy was actually located not far from modern Cambridge in England, and that the Odyssey took place in the Atlantic Ocean. It could be that Homer's Thames, for example, is truly the Thames, virtually the same name phonetically. If the Odyssey truly describes the Mediterranean, how is it possible that Homer described what really looked like the midnight sun, which can be observed only north of the Arctic Circle? There are many other incongruities which point to the idea that maybe the Phaeacians in the Odyssey were the Vikings who brought these stories with them in the Mediterranean as recently as a millennium ago. Hailing from Scandinavia, Vikings are known to have invaded parts of the Mediterranean in the 9th and 10th centuries AD, and the Normans, Northmen, who settled in Normandy, today in northern France, were none other than the descendants of the Vikings, who invaded Italy, Sicily, and even Greece in the 11th and 12th centuries AD. More particularly, Normans are known to have partially destroyed Thebes and Corinth in 1146. If we subtract 1800 years to these last two dates, we end up with a Scaligerian time frame of 719 to 651 BC, i.e. the 8th to 7th centuries BC, which nearly corresponds to the time when Homeric poems are said to have emerged in their oral form. Here's what might have happened. Vikings or Normans, people of Viking ancestry, brought their northern folk tales with them in the Mediterranean. At the time, they must have remained oral epic poems. This may have occurred between the 9th and 12th century AD. Later on, in the 12th or 13th centuries, members of the St. Omer clan who had settled in Greece became familiar with these Viking stories circulating in the Mediterranean at the time and wrote down or dictated the poems, which are viewed today as seminal masterpieces of Western literature. Considering that the St. Omer clan came from northern France, in a region which is immediately adjacent to Normandy, the place settled by the Normans in the previous centuries, it might even be argued that these tales had been heard there rather than in the Mediterranean. Some confusion arose later as to who had written the poems and when, but the name Omer was remembered as Homeros in Greece, and the fact that he was a blind man was also recalled. The fact that both the Greek Homer and the French bishop Saint Omer are said to have been blind men might indicate that they are one and the same person, perhaps two much distorted versions of a man who was a poet, and who knows, a bishop or perhaps a warrior when he was younger, who lived in Frankish Greece in the 13th century AD. If true, the Rashomon effect, the language factor, and the Thanksgiving effect have probably played major roles in the process of distortion. It was only the creation of Scaligerian chronology in the 16th and 17th centuries which pushed the Homer of Greek history and the Saint Omer of French history back in time, each in a distinct period. It is telling that Homer's poems are supposed to have been lost, or at least almost totally forgotten, for more than a millennium in the Western world, roughly between the time of the Roman Empire and the Italian Renaissance. In the 14th century, Homer's poems were translated into Latin, and people were critical of the translation at the time, but at least it allowed Western Europe to have access to Homer's works. It could be an accident that the Odyssey and the Iliad have many Viking aspects to them, which recall the Arctic Circle in Northern Europe, and it could be an accident that Homer's poems in their oral form are supposed to have been created 1800 years rather than, say, 650 or 1575 or 2200 years before the time of the Viking and Norman invasions. And it could have been an accident that Homer's poems in their written form are supposed to have emerged 1800 years rather than, say, 225 years or 950 years before the time of the St. Omer clan who ruled parts of Greece. It could be an accident that Homer is supposed to have lived at a time when Greece was called Achaea, while the St. Omer family lived at a time when much of Greece was called the Principality of Achaea. And it could be an accident that both Homer and St. Omer were blind, and that Homer's poems were translated into Latin shortly after the time the St. Omer clan ruled Greece. It's a total of 6 accidents, but who knows? On the contrary, if we accept that much of the history of ancient Greece is affected by an 1800-year chronological shift, then everything becomes logical and straightforward. The sequence of events leading...
Let's hear this for a second.
I'm sick and tired of hearing things from untitled chapter of their lives and of their nations. This applies especially to the poorer citizens. Think of the Greeks. Think of the Palestinians. I have detached myself completely from this disgusting election, and with all its triviality and gross dishonesty, but I have been pleased to give full support to Stephen Hopwood in his independent candidacy.
So did you see those coins that I was showing? You know, do you see what that is? That's the Nazi, the swastika on the same coin. Recently discovered history, they like to always say. And you know what? I'm not going to make any apologizes. 8 hours on the day. You know, I could go more, but 8 hours is good. And tomorrow is Sunday. Met a man starting a Black History Museum in the local area. Going to try to get a talk with him tomorrow and see what's going on. Meantime, I'm going to shut it down. It's Flat Earth Nation. What flood was Armageddon? You know, I'm never going to tell you anything else. Why would I? Trying to prove, and my friends are trying to prove, we have your best interest at heart. Amen. Hallelujah.